So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Quest Connect. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Quest Connect. Great to be here with you on this Sunday, the 6th of November. Can we believe we're in November already? Not too long for Christmas now. So I'm excited to be here today, and I'm excited about the topic. This is a session that all of the facilitators bring to you once a month, and it will go for an hour. And I'm hoping to leave enough time at the end that we can do a meditation as well. And of course, we'll start with a meditation. So before we get started, I just wanted to introduce myself. Some of you know me, some of you don't. My name's Tamika, and I'm one of the senior facilitators at Quest for Life. And I've been working at Quest now for over 14 years. Love going to Quest. It's been a life changer for me, and I love the transformation that occurs at the Quest programs. I love being part of that, being able to pass on what I know through Patria's teachings and philosophies at Quest. It makes such a difference to many, many people. So I'm pleased to be here with you today, and today I'm going to be looking at relationships. And the reason I thought about covering this subject or this topic is because there's a lot of stress around at the moment with what's happening globally and a lot of financial strain. Just in general, we seem to be a lot busier than what we normally are. And therefore, there can be a bit of conflict in relationships. So that's what we're going to be looking at today, and how to deal or how to manage with conflict. And then we're going to be looking at ways that you can have a loving, respectful relationship when you're in your adult, which is, the plan, really, what we're looking for. I'm just going to see if there's anybody here that's logged in. Hi, Anne. Beautiful to see you. Thank you for coming in today. That's great. Now, I'm at the back of Matcham Valley today, and it's a beautiful Sunday here. Love to hear where you're from, what part of Australia. Sometimes we get people from New Zealand or even other parts of the world. So if you could just let me know where you're logging in from, that would be great. And I will, throughout the course, I'll go through and see if there's any comments and deal with them as they come up. Or I'll comment on at the end of the session as well. So let's start by doing nothing. Let's take a little moment to bring our focus, our awareness, our attention to right here, right now. It's such a gift when we can do that, because, this mind of ours, it can be so busy. It can take us off into the future, and that's a bit of an agony when we go into catastrophizing or worrying. And, beyond this moment, we don't really know or have any control around what's going to happen in the next moment. So the gift is to be here. And then, of course, the mind can have us going off into the past, where we start ruminating and rehashing and going over things. Well, that's an agony as well. And this little process of coming to your senses, a little mindfulness exercise, is such a gift because it allows you to be in the present moment, to connect with all of the senses of the body. And of course, the body is always present. The body is always here. And that's why, for those of you who have been to Quest, you'll know that we do this practice regularly throughout the course of the program. I do it regularly throughout the course of my day. And I know Patria and the rest of the team do as well. It's such a lifesaver. So let's dive in and start with a little moment of doing a coming to the senses. So Anne's from Canberra. Lovely to see you again, Anne. All right, now I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And I might close my eyes. I've had a bit of a busy morning, so I'm going to close my eyes as well for this. And probably take us about 5 minutes, maybe 4 minutes, something like that. So just inviting you, if you can, to close your eyes or lower your gaze. You can leave your eyes open for this if you choose to. And just taking a moment to focus on the breath, maybe taking your focus to the tip of your nose. And following one full inhalation and one full exhalation. And perhaps notice where you notice the breath. Is it at the nostrils or the chest, or do you feel your belly moving in and out? I'm going to invite you to take perhaps a deeper, longer, slower breath, and imagine that you're filling your belly up like it's a balloon. And then the slightly longer exhalation, maybe letting go with a bit of a sigh. Allow your body to soften, the shoulders to relax. Maybe one more of those deeper, longer, slower breaths and a slightly longer exhalation. And then allow the breath to return to its natural rhythm. Just gently in and gently out. There's no need to change it. And if that mind does wander, which it may do, you can bring your focus back to the breath. And your breath can be like an anchor, which tethers you to now. So a thought comes in, notice a thought, let it go, then back to the breath. And it's tracking down through your body and perhaps taking your focus down to your toes. Maybe wiggling your toes in your awareness. And feeling your feet on the floor and the socks or the shoes. And then taking your focus up to your bottom in the chair or the surface beneath you. And just noticing all the contact points where the body makes connection with the surface beneath you. Maybe notice the way the chair supports the shape and the weight of your body. And getting a sense of where the clothing makes contact with your skin. Or even when cool air brushes across a bare skin. Just as you allow yourself to connect with the sense of touch. And then taking your focus out to the sense of hearing. Just allowing your hearing to run right out into the environment. Tracking one sound, letting that go, and then another sound. And maybe even bringing it to sounds that are closer to you within the room, or even sounds within your own body. The sound of your breath or your heartbeat. Maybe some sounds in your tummy. And then tracking the sense of sight. If your eyes are open, just tracking what you can see. And if your eyes are open, what are you aware of as you take away the visual distractions? Perhaps there's a sense of connecting with your inner world, your inner stillness. And then tracking down to the nostrils and the sense of smell, tracking any scents or aromas in the air. And if you're not aware of any scents or aromas, perhaps imagining a smell. Freshly baked cookies, or freshly mown lawn, or the smell of spring. And very closely related is a sense of taste. So take your awareness down to the mouth and become aware of any sensations in the mouth. The tongue, the lips, the cheeks. Just as you quieten your mind, giving it a little rest, and come to your senses. Allow the breath to lengthen, maybe get a little bit of movement into your body. And when you're ready, I'm just going to invite you to open your eyes. So thank you. I feel a little bit calmer now. As I said, it's been a bit of a busy morning as well. So, all right, so Jeanette's here as well from Salamander Bay. Lovely to have you with us this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. I'm used to doing the Quest, done with Quest. So let's dive into the subject today, and I want to just look at relationships and what happens in relationships. So we're all social creatures, and to be human is to interact with other humans. And also to be human is to have a deep desire to be in connection with another. We all really long for that, don't we? And yet, no matter how hard we try, sometimes we might disagree or end up in conflict or fights with another person. Because we're different, yeah? We're different, and it also really factors in the way we're brought up as well. What sort of messages we got around being able to manage conflict. Sometimes conflict is thrown underneath the rug and it's not talked about, or it might have been overdone in your household. And most of us weren't really taught how to skillfully handle these conflicts. So we often do things that make the situation worse, or at best to not do nothing to solve it really. You know, we might explode or hurt others with our words or our bluster. We might become sarcastic or bitter, resentful, sulk, pull away, go into our cave. And really, these are not productive ways to manage difference or conflict. Not to be making yourself wrong if this has been your way, but of course, hopefully listening to this can be a little bit of a wake up to say, well, I could do it differently. So don't be sitting here making yourself wrong if that's been your way, because we're going to get some really practical today on some of the things that you can do. So as I said, it's our basic instinct to be in relationship. We want to feel loved, connected, supported and needed. And it's our human instinct, our human nature for that. We want that. So when listening to this talk, I want you to focus on the main relationship in your life, which possibly is your partner, your husband or your wife. However, these principles that I'm going to discuss can relate to any relationship in your life. So it can be your parents, your siblings, your friends, or your colleagues. So really, sort of expand it out. If you've got any difficulty with anybody in relationship, these principles will work with your partner, but also with other people in your life as well. And just, while we're sort of tracking on to your partner, I'll sort of go there to start with. Maybe just think back to when you first met your partner and how much you look forward to seeing each other. Perhaps you couldn't stop thinking about each other, constantly giving and receiving messages, via body language, the telephone, letters. And really, in this early stage, they call it the lust stage, it's very, very nice. It's kind of something that we really admire and want in our life. We can't get enough of it. And what happens is, as time goes on and the relationship falls into normality, which it does, that initial connection can be strained due to busyness of everyday stresses, work, family commitments. Yeah. And let's face it, there's a lot going on globally at present, which is going to impact us all in different ways, and particularly with the stresses, dare I say, financially at the moment as well, with all the interest rates going up and the mortgage rates and all that sort of thing, and the cost of living. And we could go on and on about that as well. So when this happens, sometimes this results in the romance and the intimacy fading away due to the pressures in life, and we can often take out our frustration on the people that we love. Yeah. So that's where we're going today. I want to talk about, how you can maintain a loving relationship with another. Yeah. And I just found this quote here. I'm not sure who wrote it, but I liked it. So when considering a relationship, it's often said that a comparison between with your garden, if you don't tend to it, the weeds will grow and overtake the beautiful flowers. And just like our garden, we need to put time and effort into maintaining all of our relationships. Yeah, we need to make time and effort for it. Also, most importantly today, I want to look at how, to manage conflict or arguments in your relationships. And then I'm going to get really practical on ways that you can have a loving adult relationship as well. So let's firstly go to the challenges that we might experience in your relationship. And then, as I said, we'll look at other ways to maintain that loving connection later on. Now, conflict does exist in all relationships. I have heard some people sort of say that they never argue. And I'm often curious about this. Around what's being held in or not spoken about, and perhaps any underlying frustration and how that might manifest. Sometimes healthy argument or disagreement is not a bad thing to have, because you are two healthy individuals coming together, and not an unhealthy argument or conflict, which is what I'm going to talk about. So by conflict, I really want to frame this up here And I'm looking at things like verbal disagreements and arguments. You can agree sometimes, and sometimes you can disagree, and it isn't necessarily a bad thing. You have the right to have a different opinion to your partner, yeah? And while conflict is normal, it can also bring out the worst in us. It can highlight areas of your relationships that aren't working. So if your conflict is based on decisions, such as, where we're going to go for dinner, the next holiday, different parenting styles, what we're discussing today will support you to resolve arguments in a healthy way. But I also want to frame up here that if you feel unsafe or threatened in a disagreement or an argument, or if there is a coercive control used, perhaps this talk will bring awareness to what's required in order for you to feel safe. Yeah. You need to keep yourself safe here. So domestic abuse is never okay, no matter how stressed you or your partner are. It's never okay. So if there are personal attacks, or your partner puts you down, or you find you cannot express yourself without fear of retaliation, you may be experiencing abuse. And some common signs of these could be things like using that coercive control or power over you, jealousy, checking the phone, checking where you are, limiting contact with friends and family, angry outbursts, rageful behaviour, gaslighting, so making you feel wrong, talking over you, not listening, put downs, criticism, and any financial control as well. So that's just some of them as well. So if you are struggling with any of these and abuse and you don't feel safe, there is support out there. And I'm just going to, I'll put these up in the post a little bit later, but there's a lifeline on 13 11 14, or there's 1-800-RESPECT, RESPECT, and there's also a men's line Australia on 1300 78 99 78. So if any of those, if you experience any of those, the most important thing is that you keep yourself safe and to get some support. Yeah. What I'm talking about here today is general conflict that we might have in a relationship, not the abuse and the power over. So look, generally when you have an argument with your partner, or anybody really, it's usually because you're triggered by something that they said, they didn't or did do, or somehow they've missed you. Yeah. Now I want to talk here a little bit about the window of tolerance, and for those of you who have been down to Quest, perhaps you might be aware of the window of tolerance. And because the window of tolerance is this area that we have, when we're in this area, we're able to be regulated, calm, centered, and we can be the witness. So this is what we call emotional regulation, yeah? So I like to use the room as an example, with the ceiling and the floor. So while I'm in the room, I'm calm and centered, yeah? But what can happen is we can flip up or down when we're triggered. Now here's the bad news, we're always going to be triggered, always. The good news is that once we can recognize the trigger, then we have the capacity to do something different here. Now, the tricky part here is because quite often we end up marrying a partner that is similar to the mother or the father figure. And you might sort of say, well, how does that happen? But I see it so many times, and they might have similar characteristics to mum or dad, and which may remind you of how you felt when you were younger. And so, your partner can be a little bit of a mirror, which can bring up these really young feelings for you. So when you're triggered, it always happens, you feel it in the body, and it can happen really, really quickly. You can feel reactive. So you can feel not heard, hurt, flooded with emotions. It can feel, boom, 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye. Angry, sad, unloved, misunderstood or criticised, taking things personally, feeling like you're not loved or liked, not cared about, afraid, tense, not good enough, like things are out of your control, frustrated, unappreciated, disliked. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but these are some of the things that when we're triggered, all of these things come up. We can feel abandoned, rejected, and it might be a mirror of what we felt when we were younger, yeah? So with this window of tolerance, what can happen is, if you're triggered, it can sometimes just be a look or a tone, something very small, really. You can either flip up, so if I use the room again as a metaphor, you can flip up so you sort of go out above the ceiling, and this is what we call hyperarousal. So this is when we go into fight or flight or anxiety and the reaction really quickly. And this is usually when we dump out onto other people and hurt people with our words, with our bluster, yeah? Or we can spiral down and metaphorically sort of go down under the floor, so going out of that window of tolerance. And when we do that, we can go down into numb or freeze and into our depression. You know, our thought process come in and could be saying things to yourself, I'm never going to get over this, this is useless and hopeless, and it can feel quite all doom and gloom, and you feel like you're spiraling down the drain. So we can have a flip, that's hypoarousal or hyperarousal. So when you're triggered, you'll either go one or the other, yeah? And we get unregulated and we leave the window of tolerance, yeah? And as I said, it happens very, very quickly. So the idea is, as I said, is to notice, to know thyself well, to know what the trigger is. And then you can sort of have the capacity to sort of go, there it is. Isn't that interesting? I'm being triggered again. I'm going to give you some more skills on this as we go forward. But generally, if we go into hyperarousal, which is a reaction, what's underneath the anger or the rage or the reaction is sadness or pain. However, anger is often expressed. And what happens with that is it sort of pushes people away, you know, because we kind of go like that, and that stops us, people coming towards our vulnerability. And it's a bit paradoxical, really, because what we really desire is connection. So anger keeps you at arm's length, but what we really want is this. So you've got this paradox sort of thing happening. And generally people that are in reaction or angry, tend to be sort of quite lonely, because a lot of people don't like them, yeah, or don't like their anger. So it's a bit paradoxical here as well. So when I look at anger, and any therapist will do this, you'll always look at what's underneath the anger, which is generally sadness or vulnerability. And they might not have been able to express that when they were younger. And I want to give you a little story here, a little metaphor, and I quite often use this, and I think it's a great analogy to use around what happens with anger. So I want you to imagine, and you can close your eyes if you want to here as you imagine this. I want you to imagine that you're walking through a forest. And as you're walking through the forest, all of a sudden you see a dog that's under a tree. And you like dogs, so you go, oh, you know, there's a dog. So you walk over to try and pat the dog. And the next thing, the dog rears up at you and lunges at you with its teeth bared, and it tries to attack you. So you reel back and think, oh my goodness, what a horrible dog. You know, I don't like that dog. So, but then you see that the dog has a trap on its leg. Yeah? Its leg is caught in a trap, so it's in pain. And when you see that, you start to look at the dog differently. You look at it through the eyes of compassion. This dog is in pain and it doesn't really know anything, how to do it in a different way. Yeah? So when we realise that either you or the other person may in fact have a trap on their leg and they are suffering, can you look at the person or yourself, the situation, through the eyes of compassion? Yeah, maybe not when you're right in the midst, you know, in the mix of the anger, but maybe later to sort of have a look at it and sort of look through their window, their perspective, to sort of see what's going on. Often when we soften our energy and let go of the fight or the battle, let go of the rope, things will shift, yeah? And I know it's sort of hard to hear, because often we want the other person to change. We want the other person to stop being so angry or attacking or whatever it is. So this is the bad news, is that often we have to change ourselves, and then energetically things will shift around you. So can you let go of the rope? Sometimes I often sort of say to my clients, well, do you want to have peace or do you want to be right? Because if you want to be right, you're sort of coming up to meet your partner and you're kind of going into battle as well. And this is in any relationship as well. So as I said, I'm not saying this is easy when you're in the midst of this anger or rage. But once you can take a breath and catch your reactions, then you have the capacity to do something different. And this is the emotional regulation. This is coming back to center, coming back to within the room, back into within that window of tolerance. So, aware, give yourself permission and feel the feelings with awareness, and then ask yourself, what is it that I need right now? Yeah. If you're feeling any of those feelings that I talked about before, what is it that I need right now? Now, down at Quest, we talk about the mansion of emotions. And in the mansion of emotions, it's a bit paradoxical, because generally if we're feeling sad or hurt or not heard or unloved, we generally sort of push those feelings aside because we don't want to go there. We really don't want to be able to deal with those. And we can keep busy. We keep busy, or we distract ourselves, sometimes with food or alcohol or any sort of the other addictions as well. So what we're talking about here is if you're feeling, say, for instance, flooded with emotions, angry, sad, unloved, misunderstood, criticised, yada, yada. What we do with the mansion of emotion is that we actually give ourselves permission to feel the feeling fully. Yeah. And once we do that, it shifts. And we call this, in Gestalt, I'm a Gestalt psychotherapist, in Gestalt we call this the paradoxical theory of change. So what we resist persists. So once we lean into it, energetically it will shift. So this metaphor of the mansion, if you could imagine that you're going into a mansion and each room is assigned a different feeling. And you might find yourself going into the sad room or the overwhelmed room. And you give yourself permission to feel the feelings with awareness. If you're going into the angry room, you might feel the heat in your body, you might feel the tenseness in your body, like you want to kick the wall or punch the wall or something. It's okay to feel these feelings as long as you don't enact upon it and hurt other people with your words or your bluster or your fists, yeah? But it's okay to have the feelings. So, acknowledge it, allow it and accept it. Really allow yourself to fully immerse yourself in what you're feeling in your body at that moment, yeah? Now, here's the good thing, is that you don't have to stay there all day. You can be in there for 5 minutes. And it's just acknowledging that this is how I feel right now, and I have every right to feel this way. Tara Brach talks about the RAIN process, or the RAIN meditation, and RAIN being recognizing, acknowledging, investigating. So, where do you feel it in the body? Do you feel heat? Do you feel fluttery? Do you feel tense? And then, so investigating and then nurture. And this is a little bit what we're doing in the mansion. So we're going into the mansion, we're giving ourselves permission to feel it with awareness. And here's the thing that, most of us miss out on is, what is it that I need? So perhaps then you need to imagine yourself going, there might be a adjoining door, a room where you can open it up and then go into the gratitude room and then start to feel grateful for things in your life. Yeah. So beautiful process of being able to deal with and manage your own emotions rather than waiting for your partner or the other person to come in and soothe you. And again, this is, was one of the most disappointing things for me, was that to realize that you have to do it yourself. Of course, sometimes your partner or a loved one might come in and give you a hug, or you might need to ask for a hug. But often if we can give it to ourselves, to really acknowledge, and this is called the havening technique, to really touch your arm or rub your arm and, saying something to yourself like, why wouldn't you feel this way? It's okay for you to feel this way. So acknowledging, allowing, accepting, excuse me, and just being in that mansion, in that anger room, in that sad room for however long it takes. And this is part of teaching yourself to regulate your emotions. Because most of us weren't taught that when we were young. Children were seen and not heard when I was growing up, so you had to you've got to learn it yourself. And I think that's what therapy is all about, really. Excuse me. Therapy is reparenting yourself, going and learning all the skills that perhaps we didn't learn when we were younger, learning how to navigate difficult emotions, learning how to navigate difficult people in our lives, and we have a few of them as well in our lives. So, look, of course, it takes two people to make a relationship, two people to break a relationship. And there are two sides to every story. So what you have to remember here is that whilst you've got your window of tolerance, over here, the other person also has their window of tolerance. So the nature, your nature, your way might be to drop down and go into your freeze or your hypoarousal, going into depression, going into your cave, withdrawing, avoiding. And the other person might go into the hyperarousal, where they go into their rage, reaction, anger, the fight or flight. They're sort of in that reactional mode. And this is where we kind of miss each other. So it's always good to know thyself well, know your triggers, and have awareness of what's occurring in the present moment. My mother, she's in her late 80s now, and she still has the capacity to trigger me, and now I can just look at her, through loving eyes and go, there it is, she's doing it again, and I'm okay with it, because I'm able to regulate myself and not be derailed or wobbly as a result of it, And that's because of everything that I've learned at Quest and applying it, with every day into my life. So how are we going for time? I think we're doing okay. So we're about halfway through. It's always difficult for me to navigate the timing on these things. So hopefully, divinely, it will all work out. Now, before we go any further, I want to just talk a little bit about personal boundaries. Now, boundaries is something I think most people need to work on. We can either be too guarded, we can push people away, as I sort of said, or sometimes we don't have any boundaries and people can kind of come in and dump all over us. And if that's the case for you, if your partner is dumping on you and directing anger at you, I want to just ask you or pose the question, who says that you have to stay there and take it? Who says you have to stay there and take it? And that's a boundary. Healthy anger is actually having a boundary to sort of say, hey, that's not okay. It's not okay for you to speak to me like that. Go away, calm down. When you calm down, we can have the conversation, And this is what Tai Chi is all about. It's, energy. Tai Chi is all about energy. So if you can imagine that some negative energy is being directed at you by the way of anger or rage or conflict, you've got two choices here. You can stand there and take it, and then we start to feel not good enough or hopeless or useless, everything that they're telling us, Or you can kind of go like that and the energy can flick past you. So, what I'm just going to say to you is perhaps if you are in the midst of conflict and the person that you're speaking to is a little bit out of their window of tolerance and you can feel yourself maybe slipping down or above as well, have the awareness, I'm being triggered here as well, and then see if you can exit stage right. Get yourself out of there. Do what you've got to do to be able to lovingly attend to yourself in that moment. Because, everybody deserves to be treated with respect, even during an argument. And if your partner swears at you, calls your name, or ridicules you, you can tell them to stop. And if they don't, you can walk away and just tell them that you don't want to continue arguing right now, and that's putting a firm boundary in place. And it also keeps you safe as well. Otherwise, you're going to be like two kids having an argument. In transactional analysis, which is a form of therapy, they have this model called the parent, adult, child ego states, and we all have these different ego states. So the parent or the critical parent ego state can sometimes speak down to the other person in their child ego state, And this comes to, you always, you never, and sort of speaking down to the other person. Then the other person might come back from their child ego state, starting to justify or whatever they do. And this is an argument, when you're sort of coming from, up here and down here. The whole idea here is if you can go into your adult ego state, which is in the middle, parent, adult, child, you can go into your adult ego state, the argument stops. And this works. So I'm going to invite you to do the experiment here as well. Now, how do you go into your adult? Like I said, take a breath, get yourself out of there. Let's talk about this later. Let's not dump on each other. Let's calm the waters and come back. Yeah. Because Nelson Mandela said, when the blood boils, don't speak. Yeah, when the blood boils, don't speak. So I think that there could be a second sentence there, which is when the blood cools, come back and have the conversation. Yeah. So once you can take that breath and come into your adult by saying that, two things will happen. The argument will stop because the other person will have to come up into their adult ego state, or they'll feel bamboozled and won't know what to do with you, and they'll leave. So one way or another, the argument will stop once you get into your adult. And again, it comes back to you, with you doing something different. When you do something different, energetically, it will shift things. So like I said, you don't have to stay there and take it. You can leave, and you can put up that boundary around this is not okay. Particularly if there's young people involved, you really want to, put a stop to it before it escalates, before it gets really out of control. So let's look at ways to manage the situation. Just a little bit of a summary before we sort of go on to the rest of the session. Both to identify your triggers, both know your triggers, and perhaps when you're in a calm state, when you're in your window of tolerance, you could even talk to your partner or the other person about, I'm really triggered when this happens. Yeah. And of course there's, when you're working with your therapist, you can sort of look at ways that you can kind of leave the past in the past and really step into now, take your power back. But it's good to know that sometimes these triggers will just come up out of nowhere. Yeah. So if you can both identify it, become aware of the reactions of what occurs in your body. The tightness, the heat, feeling like you want to punch something, feeling heaviness in the chest, churning in the gut. Become aware of what's going on in your body, because your body will let you know. Once you've done that, you can take a breath. One breath. Grandma used to say 10 breaths. It can be one breath. And be mindful of right here, right now, what's happening. And maybe saying to yourself, this is not happening now, I'm being triggered. Yeah. This is not happening now, I'm being triggered. And I just want to frame up here that it's not always easy, particularly if the trigger is being made, making you wrong, or you feel rejected. And I've never met any person that can handle rejection well. I'm yet to meet one, so just to know, and this is where you can be really gentle with yourself, like, it's okay, you're doing okay, and do that havening technique there as well. Another one to talk about with the partner or the other person is when you're in that window of tolerance, when you're in this calm state, this calm centered state, have a talk about a code word. Now, a code word can be, maybe a funny word, something that's going to break or interrupt the interaction. If you can feel yourself both escalating, maybe it could be something like bananas, and that can sort of shock you back into, okay, so this is getting out of control. We both need to exit stage right, go and attend to the energy, maybe get out, do a little bit of gardening, go for a walk, go for a run, do what you've got to do, and then come back and have that conversation. So see if you can find a code word. Pineapples, bananas, some abracadabra, whatever. You'll find a word that will feel right for you. As I said, exit, give yourself time, space, calm down. When that blood's boiling, you do not want to give it a voice, because we hurt people. We hurt the ones we love. Yeah. And here's the thing about that too. Quite often we speak to the people that we love in a really disrespectful way. And yet we wouldn't do that to somebody that we met on the street or potentially one of our friends, but we generally do it to the people that we love. And why is that so? Well, we generally feel pretty safe to be able to be real with the people that know us well. And we've probably tested it out on them a few hundred times and they're still there. It doesn't make it right, but it does happen. It does happen. So maybe have a think about that. This person that you're with, whether it's in a relationship, a husband, a wife, a partner, or it could be parents, children, business partners, can you be respectful to them? Yeah. Speak to them like you were speaking to a friend. And see if you can see the situation through the perspective of your partner's eyes, looking at it through the eyes of compassion. As I said, with the dog with the trap on its leg, are you able to look at that and sort of say, I can see there's a bit going on for you as well. And if necessary, apologise. This is taking responsibility for your role in it. It's always good, always just such a gift if we can just turn the mirror around and really look at what's your role in this. What could you have done differently? Yeah. Now this comes down to communication. Use your words, which can make us feel vulnerable. Being vulnerable can be, feel a little bit like we're naked and it can feel a little bit scary. But I'm going to give you some ideas now around how to communicate in your adult. Healthy, respectful communication can actually allow you to understand each other better, make your relationship, any relationship, stronger. Yeah. So you can, if you felt excluded, powerless, not heard, judged, disrespected, any of those feelings, trapped, unloved, a way to communicate is by using a formula that we offer at Quest. And again, for those of you who have been to Quest, this is going to be a reminder. But this is just such a powerful formula to use. And it can feel a little bit clunky when you first start to use it. You don't necessarily need to use these words, but the whole idea here is that you notice what's going on. So you're noticing the situation. And the next part is you're imagining. So you're having a crack at empathy. You're having a crack at that compassion around, I imagine this is going on for you. Then you're talking about how you feel, which is very important. A lot of us have no idea what we're feeling because we're flooded. And then most importantly, you're talking about what you need. Now, as an example of this, the way that it could work is that if you have a messy teenager, you can come from that critical parent speaking down to the child, like you never clean up your room, you're useless, you're hopeless, I've asked you 100 times, and generally you get the hand and they're not listening to you at all. Yeah. If you use this formula here, this is coming into your adult, and it could be something like, I'm noticing that you haven't cleaned your bedroom up yet, and I'm imagining it's not really important for you, but I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, a bit frustrated, and what I really need you to do is to help me by picking up your clothes and cleaning up your bedroom. So you can see there that it's a really respectful way of being able to communicate. If you've got a partner who is really stressed and worried about money, or maybe on the verge of being a burnout, working long hours, coming home to kids, whatever, it could be something like, I'm noticing that you're in a bit of overwhelm at the moment and a bit grumpy, easily triggered. And I'm imagining there's a lot going on for you at the moment. You've got a lot of stress, a lot to worry about. But I'm feeling really alone in this. I'm feeling like I miss you. And what I really need is for us to be able to talk about it and how we can sort of look at how we can lovingly come back together again. Yeah. So the good thing about this is you can write it down. If you've got a telephone conversation, if you write it down, then it's there in front of you. And then you can just refer to that as well. But it's a beautiful way, respectful way of conveying your feelings and reconnecting. Yeah. Another thing that I offer with my clients around communication is, and I'm not sure whether this is available to you, but if it is, it's a fabulous thing to do. At the end of the day, when maybe you both get home from work, or if you've been home, your partner's been working, see if you can schedule 20 minutes. Depends on the age of the kids. Maybe the kids can watch TV or something for those 20 minutes, but just so as you can have 10 minutes each. Now in that 10 minutes, one person will have 10 minutes to talk about their day, and they can talk about anything. And the other person doesn't have to fix it, they don't have to do anything, they just need to listen and nod their head, like one of those little dogs in the car, just so as they know that you're listening. And then at the end of the 10 minutes, you can just say thank you. Yeah. And then of course it'll swap, and then you'll have your turn to talk for 10 minutes. Could be talking about what happened at work, or I had this road rage incident, or the kids were driving me crazy today. But it's just a way of sort of being able to dump out what you're holding, and it's out there. You don't need to fix it, you don't need to do anything, but it's also an exercise on 100% listening. It's a beautiful thing to do. So it's just a way, if you can, manage that 20 minutes. Even if it's 5 minutes, it's better than no minutes at all. Now, just on this communication as well, I just want to sort of say that there are some people in our lives that are consistently themselves, and that maybe that formula will not work on them. And we know people like that in our lives. So one way that Petrea and the teachings at Quest talk about is to say this to yourself, is that's just, and I'll use mum or dad, that's just dad doing dad. Yeah. If I want dad to be any different, I'm going to suffer. There he is. That's just dad doing dad again. Yeah. And it kind of just lets go of the rope. You're not really expecting anything from them then, because no matter, with some people who are consistently themselves, no matter what formula you use, no matter what way you try and nudge in to try and have that loving, respectful relationship, they might continue to do that and continue to wound you as well. So you need to make a decision on how vulnerable you're going to be with some people, because it won't work. Yeah. So yeah, that's just dad doing dad. That's just mum doing mum. If I want them to be any different, I'm going to suffer. Yeah, there they are. All right, so I just want to quickly talk about compromise when possible. As I said, would you rather have peace, or do you want to be right? Peace would be my choice, really. And compromise is a major part of conflict resolution in any successful relationship. But it can be hard to achieve. So what I'm suggesting is let go of the small stuff. Don't sweat the small stuff, yeah? I remember years ago, at the dining room table with my husband, he had this really bad habit of when he'd get up from the table, he would leave his chair out from the table. And it used to annoy me so much, because I'm a little bit OCD, I like things to be perfect, recovering perfectionist. And I said to him, can you please put your chair back in? And the more I went on and on and on about it, I think I've got a bit naggy about it, he would just continue to do it. And one day I was sitting down at the table, and I think he was away somewhere, I'm not sure where he was. And I looked at that chair and I thought to myself, if he wasn't here, I'd really miss that chair being out. It was one of those like aha moments of, do I really need to sweat this small stuff? So I let it go. I let go of the rope. And surprise, surprise, when I stopped going on about it, he started to put the chair in. So, that's that paradoxical theory of change. I was resisting it. And then once I sort of just thought, let go, get out of the river, stop fighting it, let go of the rope, and then energetically things shifted as well. So don't sweat the small stuff. See if you can kind of let things go as well. Now, let's have a look at some of the things that once we've sort of gotten over this conflict, and hopefully you've been able to take on some of those things that I've mentioned today, and you think, yeah, I can give that a go. And remember that if you don't do anything different, nothing's going to change. Yeah? So you have the capacity to be able to try something different. You could even talk to your partner about it. I'm noticing that we're having arguments lately, and I'm imagining that we're both stressed. I'm feeling really upset about this, and what I'd like is let's try some of these things. Let's see if we can give something a go to be able to be more respectful to each other. So look, a couple of things that you can do: a peaceful pause. Take a breath, allow space, come back to track emotionally what's going on for you. It's such a gift, a life skill if you can get that. A peaceful pause, take a breath. What's going on here at the moment? Getting into your gratitude. It is such a gift to be able to connect with your gratitude. If you focus on everything that is wrong with the other, that is all you're going to notice. and you'll go down a negative bias, yeah, and that's all you'll see. It's like you're sort of energetically putting out there, and that's what's coming back. That's all you're noticing. But if you can kind of do that mindset shift and start to get into your gratitude about everything that you love and admire about your partner, your son, your daughter, your parents, your friends, yeah, see if you can find the good in them, and it will definitely shift your focus on them as well. So rather than getting bogged down in what they don't do, you can choose to focus on their amazing qualities. The other thing is to allocate time to each other and to your family. Allocate time to relationships that are important to you in your life. We quite often get so caught up with our commitments and our busyness or our devices that we're losing that loving connection. And we could do a whole session on connection, and I might do that on the next, I think I'm on again in a couple of weeks. I might actually touch on that because it's so important that we have that loving connection, and we're losing a bit of connection currently because of our devices. So find ways to connect, if possible, to allocate some time to catch up for a coffee, allocate time to go down and spend time with your family, allocate a date night, make time to visit friends and family as well. Communication, we've already talked about communication, but really it's an integral part of maintaining a healthy relationship. And, just to listen to each other. That's quite often we talk over because we feel that the person should be over this or they're not getting it, and then we tell them what they should do. Sometimes we just need to be heard, yeah? And if you need a hug, ask for a hug. I just want you to listen to me and give me a hug. Sometimes we need to be a little bit prescriptive around what we need as well. And as I said, give yourself 10 minutes to connect over a cup of coffee and just being able to debrief. Be respectful to each other. As I said, often we'll speak to other people more respectfully than we'll speak to our own partners or the people we love. So see if you can be respectful, find that space. And just remembering too that sometimes it's better to agree to disagree. This compromise, we don't have to be both right. We don't have to be both wrong. We're just different, yeah? This healthy individual, hey, I've got a different opinion to that, but that's okay. I'm not going to make you wrong. Please don't make me wrong in that. Yeah, they can have different views as well. Now, I know this is hard to hear, but you can't change your partner. You can't change the other person. And once we can really drop into that and go, really, it's such a relief. It's such a relief because we spend so much time trying to make the other what we want or trying to get something from them that we're not getting, yeah? And I remember years ago I went to therapy and I thought, damn, like I've got to just do it myself, So once you can start to look at yourself and make changes within yourself, then energetically it will have a ripple effect out to others around you. So if you can do that work on staying centered, staying calm, stay in your window of tolerance, and being respectful, that will ripple out to all relationships in your life. It's such a gift, yeah. And conversely, it's also good to spend a little bit of time apart. Sometimes families or relationships can be quite enmeshed. There's sort of you don't know where you and the other person stops and starts. So it's good to have your own interests and your own hobbies. I love, I'm a meditation and mindfulness teacher, and I love yoga. My partner's not into any of that. So that's okay. He goes and does his thing and I do my thing, and we're okay with that. And then you can lovingly come back together again. So you can have different interests, you can have difference, but not to be too far apart, just a little bit apart, and then just lovingly come back together again. So I just want to talk a little bit, just to put a little bit of a bow around today. Just remember, speaking respectfully to each other is the most important thing. If you're in conflict with another person, be aware of your triggers. If you're leaving your window of tolerance, take time to leave, exit stage right, acknowledge your feelings, and then come back and have the conversation in your adult, yeah? And also, if from this talk you realise that you are unregulated or being reactive in some way, pushing people away when you really desire that loving connection, perhaps this could be time for you to consider getting some therapy to look at what's beneath the anger or what's beneath the reaction. You know, have you got a trap on your leg? And again, if this is the case, don't be making yourself wrong. It's an awareness building project of, well, okay, so maybe there's a bit of healing that I could do around this area in my life. Or make some inquiries about coming to Quest at Quest program. You know, it's a beautiful healing transformational program and place. And it's just amazing when we see what happens down there with the people that come. And I think it's something about giving yourself 5 days out of your life to really just do you, to stop, to get off the wheel, and to give yourself some space to, I guess, process everything that sort of happened for you in your life. And we don't get to go through life unscathed. You know, we all get to have challenges at some stage. You know, Petrea course in the Ds. We get to, you know, a divorce, a depression, a diagnosis, a deluge, a drought, a debt. We have all of these Ds sort of come at us. So if you're finding that there's something there that needs attending to and you want to give yourself some space, get yourself down to a residential program. Perhaps go to the Quest website and have a look at the programs on there. The whole schedule of events is on there. We've got the Healing Your Life program, so that's really for anybody. As I said, if you're challenged in any way at all. We have the Quest for Life programs, which is the programs that are more for people that are living with a diagnosis or some sort of physical process going on in their body. And then we've got the Moving Beyond Trauma program, and that is more specifically around looking at trauma, the impacts on the body, what happens to your brain as well, and looking at how we can rewire the brains. And in that program there, we really look at what we call post-traumatic growth. So given I've been through this trauma, what have I gained from it, and how can I be a different person because of it as well? We have some weekend workshops, one-day workshops. We've been going out into the regional areas and working with some people out there that have experienced the floods. And there's also some online programs as well. If you can't get to any of the programs, have a look on the website. There's one there on befriending anxiety. Novel concept, huh? But this is the thing, you need to make friends with your anxiety, healing sleep, and beyond burnout, so looking at some of the symptoms of stress. Other ways that you can get some support is Petrea has a meditation every Monday night. You can join the meditation group on the Facebook page. And Petrea's live every Monday night. It's very generous of her to do this. And she generally does a talk, and then she does a beautiful meditation as well. And of course you can listen to Petrea on the Richard Glover, the radio, ABC radio. That's generally 5:30 on Wednesdays. I think the next one's on the 30th of November. So there's lots of ways that you can stay connected. But I do just want to say to you that if something's come up for you here and you find that you need some extra support, then please see if you can get yourself down to Quest, or find a good therapist. Find somebody that's going to be able to lovingly support you as well. So I'm just looking here to sort of see if there's any comments, and there are quite a few. So thank you so much for joining me today. Sometimes I get the comments through a little bit later because of the delay from where I am. Now, best laid plans, I had thought that I was going to have time to do a meditation, but guess what? I've run out of time. So I will make sure that I do a meditation when I do the next At Home with Quest, which I think is a couple of weeks, and perhaps I might cover more on connection and the importance of connection as well. It's a bit of an antidote to depression. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me, and I really just invite you to get out and enjoy the rest of this beautiful Sunday, and I look forward to seeing you again shortly. Bye now.